YB stays on your neck.
Yo, my dons, make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and obviously hit the bell for notifications. So you man have most likely seen this fight already. Hughie Fury lost to Alexdander Povetkin. So this right here is your boy the YB's reaction. Now first things first, I've got to be honest. Whilst Hughie Fury, well, he lost the fight on paper, but I actually thought it was a lot closer than the judges' scorecards. Now I understand Hughie Fury was backpedaling the whole fight, and I've said myself about the Luke Campbell performance. You've got to mix it up. You can't just be back foot, especially when in Hughie Fury's case, well, and Luke Campbell's, he's a taller guy, he's also the younger guy. But I think, in fact, Luke Campbell's as well. When you're a younger and taller guy, you've got to get stuck in a few times. And more so in Hughie Fury's case, Povetkin's 40 years old now, and there's no reason for Povetkin to be outlasting and out-sticking it on you, to be honest. When you're the young, hungry gypsy lion, you've got to give it to him. But that said, the reason I'm not gonna be as negative on this one, because I'd actually written Hughie Fury off. After the Joseph Parker performance, where it was jab, 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 couldn't get a right hand to save his life. After the Pulev performance, where in my opinion he half quit, I was done with him. All hype, and I was actually very disappointed with how Hughie Fury's dad, Peter Fury, had reacted to the Pulev fight, making excuses and all this business. And I was actually much happier to see how this fight actually went, because, believe it or not, Peter Fury after the fight complained that there weren't enough right hands, and there wasn't enough right hands in this Povetkin fight. However, there were a lot more. This was a positive improvement, in my opinion, from the Pulev fight and the Joseph Parker fight. Much more improvement. He had hooks, he had right hand. More so, he was mixing up more so than any other fight. This is a step in the right direction. Not perfect, no, but definitely a step in the right direction. This fight was a lot closer than the Pulev fight was. A lot closer, in my opinion, than the Parker fight was. But maybe I'm intrigued to what you guys think. But I thought Hughie Fury mixed it up a lot better. However, he still had that high propensity to be going backwards. And also, I'll note this. Hughie Fury's got a cardio issue. The first 6 rounds, he was mixing it up a lot, as in throwing shots, a lot more than he did the last 6 rounds. In fact, the last 6 rounds, his jab had completely disappeared. That was gone, and that's why, look, the last 6 rounds clearly lost. Well, he lost the fight anyway, but the last 6 rounds, clearly, I thought the first 6 rounds were pretty mixed up, probably 4-2 to Povetkin. Maybe even 3-3 the first 6 rounds. The last 6, more or less 5-1 to Povetkin. Because Hughie Fury wasn't doing anything. It's one thing if you're going to be backpedaling, your jab's got to be pumping, jab weren't pumping. He wasn't particularly wanting to mix it up on the inside. He wasn't doing enough, and I think that comes down to conditioning. And even Peter Fury said in the post-fight interview that, oh yeah, Hughie Fury said to me after the 4th round that his legs are feeling heavy. Oh, but it's probably because of nerves. No, it's not because of the nerves. The same thing happened in the Povetkin fight. Sorry, the Pulev fight. This dude, and bearing in mind as well, I wrote this in my notes as well. Povetkin looked in one of the worst shapes I've ever seen him. He looked really fat. He actually looked really smooth and really fat. Povetkin's never been that kind of fighter. He looked really 3D in this fight. Proper 3D he did. Not good. And I actually, as I said, before the fight even started, or maybe in the first round or 2, I wrote in my notes, Povetkin does not look in shape. And in fact, the commentators even mentioned this, saying, oh yeah, Povetkin don't look in great shape. He's probably going to fade towards the end of this fight. So with that in mind, Povetkin's 40 years old, in one of the worst shapes I've ever seen him. And you've got Hughie Fury running out of gas worse than him. What's going on with British conditioning? This reminds me of Anthony Yarde versus Kovalev. Kovalev's another one. He was in one of the worst shapes I've ever seen him. Hands hanging. To be honest with you, Kovalev was actually in worse shape than Povetkin was. Povetkin kept his hands high the whole fight. Kovalev didn't. Kovalev's hands were by his ankles. What's going on with British conditioning? What is it about the British attitude, or whatever, the British training methods, that have got all our young fighters who haven't been through wars, who are 15 damn years younger than their opponents, and they're running out of gas, and their output's going down, and their hands are hanging. What's that about? I don't know. That's the question that needs to be asked, though. It's a fair point. And I'm thinking, what's Hughie Fury, Anthony Yarde going to be doing when they're 40 years old, if they can't even do it when they're 25, 26, or however old they are? It's not good enough. They've got to start looking at the training. bottom line. And it's not as if, in Hughie Fury's case, he's had a big fights now. He's had Parker. He's had Pulev. So then, in terms of the nerves, at what point are you going to, not grow out of that, but at what point are you going to get on top of that? And I actually don't believe it's nerves. I believe that if you're good conditioned, nerves obviously don't help, but good conditioning is good conditioning. I've been to a pretty high level in sport, and I was always awfully nervous before competition. But when you're fit, I never got in there and then I've run out of gas because no, you're trained. That's what you train for. And of course, nerves do make things worse, but it's a marginal effect. It doesn't. You don't go from a 10 out of 10 gas tank to a 0 out of 10 gas tank just because of nerves. That's not how it works. What happens is you've trained and you've got a 1 out of 10 gas tank, and then you've got nerves and it takes you down from 1 to 0. That's how it's a marginal effect. It probably makes your gas tank 10% worse or 15% worse at most. It doesn't being nervous doesn't reduce your gas tank from 100 to 0. It's impossible. It just doesn't work like that. What's happening is these fighters clearly ain't conditioned for what they need to be doing. So let's see. And what confuses me is Tyson Fury. Although actually early in Tyson Fury's career, he used to have conditioning problems. He seems to have fixed that now. So I don't know what he's doing different, but. Not fixed it, he does gas a little bit, but he's more or less fixed it. So that needs to be, I don't know what, I know they're not working together now, but something needs to be looked at from Hughie's point of view. I don't think that helps either, because the first 6 rounds he was throwing his hands a lot better than the last 6. And actually I should have looked at the punch stats, maybe I'll do a video on that, but I'm thinking as well that maybe it's the conditioning which shut down Hughie Fury's output in the latter half of that fight as well. As the fact that he's never been that frivolous with throwing shots, especially maybe what happened was as well, he did get caught with a few big left hooks from Povetkin and a few big right hands. Maybe that kind of shut down his offense. However, that's the negative side of Hughie Fury. I want to talk some positives, and these positives I'm going to mention to you. I actually want AJ to kind of take heed from these things. The first thing I noticed that Hughie Fury did really well was tie Povetkin up. Yeah, it got boring sometimes. I actually thought, to the contrary, many people said this fight was boring. I thought this was alright for a Hughie Fury fight. Much better than Parker, much better than Pulev. I thought it was a pretty good fight, especially the first 6 rounds. The last 6 weren't as great, but the first 6 looked like a pretty good fight, in my opinion. And I've got to say, I'm the first one to be critical. If there's a bit of crick to be about, your boy the YB will hop on it. But I feel like I'm a fair dude. Well, I am a fair dude. And this, for me, was a real good step in the direction of Hughie Fury. I would have loved to have come on here tonight, and if it had been the case and said Hughie Fury quit and he's no good, but I'm sorry, I can't say that. This was a step in the right direction. However, there's still holes he's got to work on. But as I was saying, there's a few points that I think AJ needs to really take note of. First thing was tying up. Yeah, Hughie Fury tied Povetkin up. I remember the AJ versus Povetkin fight. I don't remember AJ ever tying Povetkin up as tightly as Hughie Fury tied him up. And you got to remember as well, Hughie Fury is as tall as AJ. And in fact, Hughie Fury's skinnier, not as strong, and not as heavy as AJ. So if a skinny, longer, ganglier guy like Hughie Fury is able to tie Povetkin up, and when I say tie Povetkin up, he tied him up cleanly. When AJ was fighting Povetkin, it was always like Povetkin had one arm free, and AJ was kind of stumped. He's never, and the same as Andy Ruiz's fight. You never see AJ really get that underhook in. You never see AJ get the underhook, get his two arms underneath his opponent's armpits and really bring them in, which is something that Hughie Fury did. Every time he tied him up, Povetkin weren't going nowhere. It was a proper tie-up, and that's something that AJ needs to work on for this Ruiz fight, because too many times AJ was coming with his arms over the top of the opponent. He hasn't, in my opinion, AJ hasn't been taught how to actually tie someone up, and Hughie Fury did that well. And that's a basic skill, but it's vital, especially when you're hurt, especially when you're tired. You can't be. I feel like when I watch AJ fight, when he tries to tie people up, he almost reminds me like a guy who's trying to tie someone up off of pure instincts. Where, like, you know, if you've got two brawlers, two guys on a pub street, and they're trying to tie someone up, that's what it looks like. It doesn't look like he actually knows that the 1, 2, 3 process. It's almost like tying someone up is like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu almost. There's a process to it. And you have to be taught that, and you have to drill it, and you have to practice it. It's not intuitive, tie someone up. You can't just do it. You can't just it's not just grabbing someone And that's the way AJ does it is as if he thinks, oh, I'll just grab someone. But unfortunately, it comes down to his use as trainer. Bottom line, how was this man 10 years into his career and he still don't know how to tie people up? I'm sorry, it's not good enough. And I blame him a crackhead. And the other thing that AJ should really look at, in my opinion, is Hughie Fury did this really well. Hughie Fury's defense. Hughie Fury, whenever Povetkin threw shots at Hughie Fury's chin went to his chest, his elbows were in, and his two gloves were stuck on top of his forehead. Elbows in, chin down. And I actually think the amount of shots that Hughie Fury got hit with on that night, he took them shots a lot better than AJ did versus Povetkin. Because the difference is, AJ's guard is often, it's just a bit leaky. His elbows are always flared out. And his guards never. And you saw it in the Andy Ruiz fight as well. He's swaying like a big tree. He's not got. Whereas we'll go and watch that Povetkin fight back, or Povetkin versus Hughie Fury fight back. You can watch it on Daily Motion. Just put in Povetkin versus Hughie, and it will come up on Daily Motion, full fight. And think about the things I've mentioned here. Just these 2 points from an AJ point of view. Yeah. Think about when Hughie Fury ties him up, and number 2. Look how tight his defense is when he's under pressure. Yeah, his elbows are in front of his body, his chin's down, and his hands are square in front of his face. He doesn't give Povetkin anything to hit him with, and that's why Hughie Fury, who is lighter, who is more gangly, he was riding the shots a lot better than Povetkin did. A lot better than AJ did, sorry. AJ got caught a few times in the Povetkin fight, which I don't actually think they're as bad as people make out, but the point is, AJ got caught a few times in the Povetkin fight, and he was stumbling backwards. Hughie Fury never did that, and that wasn't because of the chin. That was because Hughie Fury had a proper defense, and AJ's never had that. I'm sorry, he hasn't. He doesn't. His elbows. You never see AJ with his elbows in and his chin down and his hands stuck to his head. And people will sit there and say, "Oh, IB, you always say about having his hands up. Oh, he needs to be." No, I'm sorry. That's just a good defense. Yeah. Bottom line, same as Floyd Mayweather. When you see Floyd Mayweather on the ropes, you don't see his elbows flared and you don't see him swaying. What you see is his knees bent and you see his elbows in and his head down. And I remember, who was it that was hitting him? Oh, that must have been it. It must have been the De La Hoya fight. And De La Hoya has him on the ropes and throws like 15 hooks. And after the sequence, Mayweather's hanging there and literally got his elbows in and tight. After the sequence, he kind of smiles. But that's the kind of defense you have. That's what AJ should be doing against Ruiz. When Ruiz is throwing all these shots. And even, that's another example, Ali on the rope-a-dope. Now, the rope-a-dope isn't good for your long-term health, but them few times in a fight when you do get caught, that's how you're meant to be. Go and watch Ali with a rope-a-dope. Elbows in, chin down. You want to make your body almost like a boulder, a small, compact boulder, yeah? AJ, on the other hand, his chin's up in the air and his hands are high and his elbows are out, and he's not compact. You want to make your body small, because that way you got less of a target. There's nothing to hit. AJ should be able to sit back on the ropes and just catch shots from Ruiz all night. And if not, he should be able to tie him up. 2 things he wasn't able to do in the Ruiz fight, which is going to be vital for this next fight. And these are basic skills. If I was in the camp, they'd be fixed within a week, no problem. Somehow, all these football coaches and whatnot don't know what they're doing. This stuff's basic. And as I keep mentioning, all good fighters are able to do this. Mayweather, I think even Tyson Fury is able to do it as well. It's not rocket science. It's real basic stuff. Elbows in, chin down. People say, "Oh, YB, he doesn't need to have his chin down. He doesn't need to have his elbows in." Well, what then? You lot keep telling him, "Oh, he doesn't need to be able to tie it." You lot keep telling him to do it as it is. The man's not infallible. He has errors that need to be fixed, and his team just don't seem to be fixing them. But anyway, let me have a look at what else is here. So yeah, they're 2 things that Hughie Fury did really well that night, and it made a difference. That's why you never saw Hughie Fury rocked. Because his defense was on point and he was tying the man up. And AJ as well. AJ's a lot stronger and a lot bigger. Therefore, he should be tying people up even more explosively. It should be not an issue for him. He should be riding shots even better than Hughie Fury. Hughie Fury's a skinny gangly dude. AJ's pure strength, and that's what frustrates me. Is because pure strength, unfortunately, just doesn't overcome technique in boxing.
Being as big and as strong as you like. If you're as big and as strong as you like with your chin in the air and your elbows flared out, unfortunately, you're leaving holes to be hit. And that's what happened in the Ruiz fight. His tight defense wasn't there. And therefore, he got hit. And that's the difference. Bottom line, you can be as strong and as youthful as you want, but if your technique ain't there, you're going to get hit and you're going to get hurt. And you're going to get dazed. And that's the thing. People tell me, oh, YB, well, he got hit on the back of the head. Well, guess what? If his positioning in his defense had been as I'm talking about, he wouldn't have been hit on the back of the head. Because his defense would have been there. Anyway. Let me talk about Povetkin now. Yeah, as I said, Povetkin looked in the worst shape of his career. But Povetkin's pressure was there the whole night. As we know, Povetkin likes to pressure. Hughie Fury just kept moving back. And I actually think that Hughie Fury, a key element Hughie Fury needs to work on, Hughie Fury needs to work on, which may explain why he's getting tired, is simply backpedaling too much. As I said, in my experience, running backwards or stepping backwards, bottom line is moving backwards when someone's pressuring you is the most tiring thing in boxing. It's just tiring. Moving backwards I don't know what it is about. It's just tiring. I'd much rather, whenever I'm on the front foot, it's not tiring. Whenever I'm inflicting my will, it's not tiring. What's tiring is when you've got someone throwing shots at you, big leaping left hooks, and you're backpedaling, trying to find little holes to scuttle out of, trying to find a way to position your feet, or when you're getting backed up towards the ropes, trying to find a way to pivot and escape, and it's always run, escape, scared, anxious. And that's what most likely is draining Hughie Fury out. He's way too anxious. He don't want to hold his feet enough. Bottom line, and also that also explains why his right hand isn't always there. Because one thing we do know is it's impossible to let a right hand go when you're on the run. Right, it's impossible. Try it yourself. Try walking backwards and throwing a right hand. It's not natural at all. You can flick a jab, but you can't throw a right hand. You can't get power shots off when you're running backwards, and that's most likely why Hughie Fury struggles. Because at the end of the day, when you're throwing right hands and you want to throw hooks and uppercuts, you've got to be moving forwards or static with them. You can walk a stiff right hand through someone. You can walk a hook through someone, but you can't backpedal any of them shots. And that's so Hughie Fury. At the end of the day, he needs to. I'm trying to think of a drill. Maybe the rope drill, where you put a rope around his sparring partner and a rope around Hughie, and Hughie's just going to have to get used to having a guy 2 or 3 meters away. Therefore, rather than backpedaling and trying to use up all the ring, because that's, especially as a heavyweight as well, it's one thing Luke Campbell doing that the whole night. He's 130 pounder. Hughie Fury is twice as heavy as him. That's most likely a massive factor as to why Hughie Fury's offense it isn't there, and the other part is why he's running out of gas. Because as I said, the reason Povetkin didn't run out of gas was because he was never under pressure. He was never anxious. He was never having to find little gaps to sneak out of. He was never having to run backwards. He was consistently inflicting his will on Hughie, which is, as I said, it's a lot easier to do. But yeah, a step in the right direction for Hughie. I believe the things I've said are fair enough. Actually, the last thing I'll say on Hughie is too much headhunting as well. Wasn't enough body work, and bottom line, also there wasn't enough action in the last half of the fight, full stop. But throughout the fight, first half and second half, wasn't enough body work from Hughie Fury. So they're things, in my opinion, I think what I've said there is valid, and they're things that if Hughie Fury fixes some of them, he can completely change his game. But it's definitely a step in, rightly or wrongly, I think it's a step in the right direction. But I'll be intrigued to see what you guys think.